The mysterious visitor. The wind howled like a wounded beast, shaking Jake's small tent as snow and ice pounded against the fabric. The blizzard outside was relentless, a freezing nightmare that turned the alien world into a white void. Jake pulled his thermal blanket tighter around his shoulders, staring at the dim light of his heater. He had been on Vortex 6 for 3 days, gathering data for his research. It was a cold, dead planet covered in endless snow and ice. The only signs of life were deep underground, hidden beneath thick layers of frozen rock. No humans lived here. No animals roamed the surface. He was completely alone. Or so he thought. A strange scratching noise cut through the howling wind. It came from outside. Jake frowned. The storm was loud, but the sound was clear. Something was moving near his tent. His pulse quickened. It couldn't be an animal. Nothing survived out here. Maybe it was a loose piece of equipment, shifting in the wind. Another scrape, then a weak thump. Jake reached for his plasma knife, his breath coming in slow, controlled inhales. He was trained for survival. He had prepared for everything, except for unexpected visitors. He hesitated, listening. The noise came again, closer this time. Something was right outside. Jake swallowed hard. If it was dangerous, he needed to be ready. If it was a malfunctioning drone, he needed to check it. Either way, he had to see. Taking a deep breath, he unzipped the tent entrance and froze. A figure collapsed into the tent, crashing onto the floor. Jake scrambled back, gripping his knife. His heart slammed against his ribs. The figure was humanoid, but not human. It was a woman, or at least it looked like one. Her skin was silver blue, shimmering in the dim light. Her eyes, half open, glowed faintly, flickering like a dying flame. Her body was thin but not weak. There was a strange alien grace in her form. But she was shivering violently, her breaths coming in ragged gasps. Jake hesitated. What the hell was she? The girl tried to lift her head. Her lips parted, and she whispered something in a language he didn't understand. Then her body went limp. Jake stared at her for a moment, his mind racing. He had never seen anything like her. The galaxy was full of alien species, but this one was unknown to him. And yet, she was freezing. Jake made a choice. He couldn't leave her to die. Moving quickly, he pulled her fully inside the tent and zipped the entrance shut, blocking out the screaming wind. He grabbed his emergency blanket and wrapped it around her fragile form. Her skin was ice cold to the touch, like she had been out in the storm for hours. As he worked, he studied her face. Despite the strange color of her skin, her features were delicate, almost human-like. Her ears were slightly pointed, and small, faint glowing veins ran along her neck. Whatever she wasn't just some wild alien creature. She was intelligent, sentient, and she was dying. Jake reached for his medkit, pulling out a small heat stim patch. He pressed it against her skin, just below her collarbone. The patch activated with a soft hiss, sending warmth through her body. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, she stirred. Her glowing eyes flickered open. Jake tensed, unsure of what she would do. Was she dangerous? Was she afraid? Would she attack? She stared at him, her eyes filled with confusion, and something else. Pain, desperation. Then, without warning, she lunged forward and grabbed his wrist. Jake gasped as a sudden shock ran through his body. His vision blurred. His head spun. Strange images flashed through his mind. Symbols, stars, voices speaking in whispers. His body felt like it was on fire, like something inside him was changing. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. He tried to pull away, but her grip was unbreakable. She spoke again, her voice weak but urgent. Survive. Must bond. No choice. Jake barely had time to process her words before her glowing eyes dimmed, and she collapsed once more. His breath came in ragged gasps as the pain slowly faded. He stared at his wrist, where her touch still tingled. What had just happened? He didn't know. But something deep inside him told him one thing. His life would never be the same again. More than just cold. Jake sat frozen, staring at his wrist. The tingling hadn't stopped. It crawled up his arm, spreading like liquid fire beneath his skin. The alien girl lay motionless beside him, her silver-blue skin still unnaturally cold despite the thermal blanket wrapped around her. What had she done to him? His breath came in slow, shaky bursts as he reached for his wrist, rubbing it as if he could erase whatever had just happened. The warmth of her touch still lingered. His body felt different. Not in pain, not sick, just off. A dull hum pulsed in the back of his skull, like the distant echo of a memory that wasn't his. He shook his head. Focus. The storm outside still raged. He had no way of calling for help. His radio barely worked in good weather, and with the blizzard. No chance. He was alone with a dying alien girl who had just done something to his body. He glanced at her. She was still breathing, but barely. Each breath was weak, shallow. Her glowing veins flickered faintly, like a light running out of power. Jake had seen enough near-death cases to recognize the signs. She wouldn't last much longer. He pulled out his medical scanner, a small handheld device meant to detect injuries and illnesses in various species. It wasn't built for unknown aliens, but it was better than nothing. Holding it over her chest, he activated the scan. The screen flickered, numbers flashing in red. Warning. CVURE system, FAI. Critical, HYPOTHERMI. Foreign energy signature DTTT. Jake frowned. Foreign energy signature. He turned his gaze back to the girl. Her body was still, but something inside her wasn't. Something was changing. Then, suddenly, she twitched. Jake barely had time to react before her eyes snapped open. The glow had returned, but this time it was brighter. She gasped sharply, as if dragged back from the edge of death itself. Her whole body jolted, back arching as a faint, pulsing light spread through her veins. Then, she turned to look at him. Jake stiffened. Her gaze wasn't panicked, wasn't afraid. It was sharp, focused, like she had just woken up from a deep sleep with a purpose. She whispered something in her language, too soft for him to understand. Then, with slow, trembling movements, she reached out and pressed her palm against his chest. Jake flinched. The moment her skin touched his, a wave of warmth flooded his body. Not just warmth, energy, strength. His muscles tightened, his heartbeat quickened, but not in fear. It felt like his body had been supercharged. What did you do?" he asked, his voice hushed. The girl blinked slowly, her glowing eyes studying him like she was seeing something beyond the surface. "You will survive now," she murmured. Her voice was weak but clear, her accent strange but understandable. Jake's stomach twisted. "Survive what?" She let out a slow, shaky breath. "The bond cannot be undone." Before he could ask what that meant, her body convulsed. Jake caught her before she collapsed, gripping her shoulders as she gasped in pain. Her veins pulsed erratically. Her breathing turned ragged. It was like something inside her was fighting to stay alive. She lifted her head slightly, her glowing eyes locking onto his. "Cold, not the problem," she whispered. "I am not. Like you. My body." She winced, gripping her side in agony. Jake's stomach tightened. He didn't know what was happening to her, but he understood one thing. This wasn't just hypothermia. "What do you need?" he asked urgently. "Medicine? Food? Heat?" She shook her head weakly. "Energy. I need." She hesitated, then slowly placed a hand over his heart. "Yours." Jake's breath caught in his throat. "My energy." She nodded. "The bond. You are connected now. Your strength keeps me here." Jake didn't understand. This wasn't like anything he had ever heard of before. How was his energy keeping her alive? And more importantly, What had she done to make that possible? Before he could ask, a distant sound rumbled through the storm. A low, mechanical howl. Jake's entire body went rigid. The girl's eyes widened in terror. "No," she whispered. "They found me." Jake grabbed his plasma rifle, his instincts screaming at him. "Who?" She sat up suddenly, her strength returning like adrenaline had hit her system. She grabbed his arm. "We have to run. Now." Jake barely had time to process what was happening before another sound cut through the storm. A screeching, metallic shriek. And then, through the howling snow, red lights, moving, searching, coming straight for them. Jake's heart slammed against his ribs. He didn't know what was coming. He didn't know what the girl had done to him. But one thing was clear. They weren't alone anymore. And whatever was out there, it was hunting her. The chase begins. Jake's heart pounded in his chest as the red lights cut through the swirling snow. They were moving. Fast. The sound of metal scraping against ice sent a chill through his spine. The alien girl's grip on his arm tightened. Her glowing eyes were filled with something he hadn't seen before. Not just fear, but pure terror. "They found me," she whispered again, her voice shaking. Jake glanced between her and the approaching lights. "Who are they?" She swallowed hard. "Hunters." The way she said it made his blood run cold. Jake grabbed his rifle and peeked through a small gap in the tent. The shapes were clearer now. Dark, mechanical forms moved through the storm, their limbs insect-like, their eyes glowing red in the night. They weren't human. They weren't natural. They were machines. Jake sucked in a breath. "What the hell are they?" She didn't answer right away. Instead, she reached for his wrist, the same wrist she had touched before. The moment her fingers brushed his skin, a strange warmth flooded his mind. Suddenly, images flashed before his eyes. A massive spaceship floating in the dark. Rows of tall, silver-skinned beings, like her. Machines marching forward, cold and ruthless. A battle. A war. And then, her running for her life. Jake jerked back, gasping. The images faded, but the weight of them remained. "They're after you," he realized. She nodded, breathless. "They were built to hunt my kind. To capture us, or kill us." Jake clenched his jaw. He didn't know much about her, but he knew one thing. Those machines weren't here to talk. Outside, the metal hunters moved closer. Their red eyes swept across the landscape, scanning, searching. Jake turned to the girl. "Can they track you?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes." "How?" She touched her chest lightly. "My energy. They can feel it." Jake's mind raced. That meant hiding wouldn't work. They had to run. The girl read his expression and stood, her movements still weak but urgent. "We must leave now. If they catch us..." She stopped, shaking her head. "They won't let you live either." That was all Jake needed to hear. He grabbed his pack, his rifle, and zipped open the tent. The icy wind hit his face like a slap, but there was no time to hesitate. He grabbed her hand and pulled her forward. "Move." The two of them plunged into the storm. A deadly game of hide and seek. The snow was deep, slowing their steps, but the wind worked in their favor. It made visibility terrible, not just for them, but for the machines as well. Jake knew the terrain well enough to have a plan. There was a ridge about a mile north, a sharp drop leading to a frozen canyon. If they could reach it and climb down, they could lose the hunters in the storm. But the machines were fast. Behind them, the mechanical screeches grew louder. They were gaining. Jake pushed forward, tightening his grip on the girl's hand. "We have to move faster." She struggled to keep up. Whatever energy she had regained was fading quickly. Jake cursed under his breath. If she collapsed here, they were both dead. "Come on," he urged. "You can do this." She looked at him, her glowing eyes flickering. "You believe in me?" Jake gave a breathless laugh. I don't even know your name. But right now, we don't have time to question things." For a moment, something in her gaze softened. Then she nodded, her grip tightening. "I won't slow you down." Together, they ran. But the hunters were relentless. One of the machines broke into a sprint, its metal limbs clicking against the ice as it moved faster than Jake thought possible. It was closing the distance. Then, a bright red laser sliced through the air, missing them by inches. Jake yanked the girl down as the beam burned through the snow where they had been standing. They were firing now. A desperate plan. Jake turned, leveling his rifle at the approaching hunter. He fired once, twice. Direct hits. The plasma blast struck the machine's chest, sending it stumbling back. But it didn't fall. Instead, it recalibrated. Jake barely had time to react before the machine lunged forward. The girl moved faster. Before Jake could blink, she stepped in front of him, raising her hands. A sudden wave of energy pulsed from her body, bright, electric blue. The moment it touched the hunter, the machine convulsed. It let out a horrible, glitched screech before its glowing red eyes flickered out. Then, it collapsed, its metal body frozen in place. Jake's mouth fell open. What the hell was that? The girl swayed, nearly collapsing. Jake caught her before she hit the ground. She looked up at him, breathing hard. "I used what little power I had left." Jake stared at the dead machine, then back at her. She had power, but it was running out. And the other hunters, they wouldn't stop. More red lights appeared in the distance. The remaining machines had seen what happened, and they were adapting. Jake gritted his teeth. They needed to disappear. "The ridge," he said, tightening his hold on her. "We need to reach the canyon. Can you still move?" She nodded weakly. "I can try." That was good enough for him. Jake pulled her forward, pushing through the snow with everything he had left. His lungs burned. His legs ached. But he refused to stop. The ridge was close now, just a little farther. Then, the ground shook. Jake barely had time to react before something massive dropped from the sky. A new machine, twice the size of the others. Its metal body hissed with steam, its eyes glowing bright and unblinking. It wasn't just a hunter. It was an executioner. It wasn't just a hunter. It was an executioner. The truth about her. The world spun in a blur of white and darkness as Jake and the alien girl plunged into the canyon below. The wind screamed in his ears, and for a terrifying second, he thought they were going to smash into the ice and die instantly. Then, impact. Jake hit the slope first, rolling, tumbling, his body slamming against frozen ridges as he slid down the steep canyon walls. Ice cracked beneath him, sharp edges cutting into his suit. The girl landed beside him, twisting her body midair with an unnatural grace, but even she couldn't stop from tumbling down the icy slope. Above them, the executioner leaped after them. Jake barely had time to react. He saw the massive machine falling, its arms outstretched, claws glowing with deadly red energy. "Move." Jake gritted his teeth and forced himself to roll to the side. The girl did the same. Crash. The executioner slammed into the ground where they had been just seconds ago, sending a shockwave of ice and debris in every direction. The entire canyon shook. Jake landed hard on his back, gasping for breath. He coughed, snow and ice covering his visor. His body ached all over. The girl landed a few feet away, breathing heavily but alive. The executioner, however, wasn't done. It rose slowly, the ice cracking under its massive weight. Steam hissed from its joints, and its glowing red eyes locked onto them. Jake forced himself up. They had to keep moving. He grabbed the girl's wrist and dragged her forward, running deeper into the canyon. The executioner let out a metallic screech and charged after them. They ran. A hidden place. The canyon was a maze of frozen walls, narrow tunnels, and jagged ice formations. Jake and the girl sprinted as fast as they could, their breath coming in ragged gasps. Behind them, The executioner moved like a nightmare, each step shaking the ground. They couldn't outrun it. Then Jake saw something, a gap in the ice wall, just big enough for them to squeeze through. "This way," he shouted. The girl didn't question him. She followed, her movements sluggish but determined. Jake dove into the crevice first, pulling himself through the tight space. The girl followed right after him, barely squeezing through. Behind them, the executioner tried to follow. Crash. Its massive body slammed into the ice wall, too big to fit through. It let out a furious screech, its red eyes scanning for another way in. Jake and the girl didn't stop. They ran deeper into the ice cave, disappearing into the shadows. For now, they were safe. The truth about her. After what felt like forever, Jake finally stopped, leaning against an icy wall. His body was aching all over, his lungs burning from the cold air. The girl collapsed onto her knees, shivering. Jake turned to her. He needed answers. What the hell was that thing? He demanded. She looked up at him, her glowing eyes dim but still intense. "An executioner," she whispered. "A machine built to end my kind." Jake exhaled sharply. "All right. Then tell me, who are you? Why are they after you?" She hesitated, as if searching for the right words. Then, after a long silence, she spoke. "My name is Aaron," she said softly. "And I am the last of my kind." Jake's stomach twisted. The last. She nodded. "My people were once warriors, created for war. We were strong, powerful, but we were also dangerous. Our creators feared us, so one by one, they sent machines to hunt us down, to erase us." Jake clenched his fists. "And you're the last one left." Aaron looked away. Yes. The weight of her words settled over him like a cold fog. An entire race, wiped out, and now she was being hunted like an animal. Jake exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "All right. And what about me? What did you do to me back in the tent?" Aaron hesitated. "I bonded you to me." Jake's jaw tightened. "What does that mean?" She met his gaze. "It means, if I die, you die too." Silence. Jake stared at her, trying to process what she had just said. She wasn't joking. His pulse quickened. "You're telling me that because of whatever you did, my life is linked to yours?" She nodded. Yes, it was the only way to survive. Jake cursed under his breath. Great, just great. This wasn't just some mission anymore. This was life or death. He was tied to an alien fugitive being hunted by killing machines. And if she died, so did he. He took a slow breath, forcing himself to stay calm. "Can we break the bond?" Erin shook her head. "No." Jake closed his eyes for a second, exhaling. "Of course not." This just kept getting better. A choice to make. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the distant hum of the executioner, still searching for them outside. Finally, Jake sighed. "All right. What now?" Erin looked at him, her expression unreadable. "You don't have to help me," she said quietly. "You can leave. Find a way off this planet. Forget you ever met me." Jake stared at her. Leave? She was giving him an out. But was that really an option? If he left her, she would die. The machines would find her, and it would all be over. Jake wasn't that kind of person. He crossed his arms. "Not happening." Erin blinked. "What?" Jake smirked slightly. "You saved my life. And thanks to you, we're connected now. So if you die, I die. That means I've got one option. Keep you alive." Erin stared at him for a long time, as if she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Then, slowly, her expression softened. "You are not like the others," she murmured. Jake chuckled. "Yeah, I get that a lot." Erin exhaled, nodding. "All right. If we are to survive, we must fight together." Jake grinned. Now we're talking. He turned toward the cave's exit. The executioner was still out there. And if Jake was going to survive this, he needed a plan. Fighting back. The cave was silent except for the distant hum of the executioner outside. Its heavy footsteps crunched against the ice, the sound vibrating through the frozen walls. It was waiting. Watching. Hunting. Jake tightened his grip on his plasma rifle, his mind racing. He had faced plenty of dangers in his time. Hostile environments, rogue mercenaries, alien wildlife. But this, a machine built for extermination. This was a whole different level of deadly. Erin sat against the icy wall, her breathing slow but steady. The faint glow of her veins flickered in the dim light. She had recovered slightly, but he could tell she was still weak. Jake exhaled and crouched beside her. All right, we need a plan. She nodded, her expression serious. It won't stop. It will search every tunnel, every crevice, until it finds me. Jake frowned. So what's our best option? Running. Erin shook her head. No, it will catch us eventually. She met his gaze. We have to destroy it. Jake scoffed. That thing is twice the size of the others, armored like a warship, and has enough firepower to melt ice like butter. How the hell are we supposed to destroy it? Erin was quiet for a moment. Then, she reached out and placed her hand over Jake's. The moment her skin touched his, a wave of energy pulsed through him. Jake gasped as images flooded his mind again. Blueprints of the executioner. Weak points in its design. A way to overload its core. Then, the vision ended. Jake stumbled back, shaking his head. The knowledge was still there, burned into his mind. He looked at Erin, stunned. You just put that in my head. She nodded. It is part of the bond. We are connected. Now, you know what I know. Jake exhaled, rubbing his temples. This just kept getting weirder. But if the information was real then... Wait. He straightened. You're telling me that thing has a weakness? Erin nodded. Yes, a small power core at the base of its spine. If we overload it, the machine will self-destruct. Jake grinned. Now that's the kind of information I can work with. But then his expression turned serious. How do we get close enough to hit it? That thing won't just let us waltz up and take a shot. Erin hesitated, then glanced down at her hands. I can weaken it. Jake frowned. You're still recovering. She looked up at him. I don't have a choice. Jake saw the determination in her eyes. She wasn't afraid to fight. He sighed. All right, but we do this smart. Erin nodded. Agreed. They had a plan. Now they just had to survive long enough to pull it off. The battle begins. Jake peeked out from the cave entrance. The executioner was still there, scanning the frozen canyon. Its glowing red eyes swept across the landscape, searching. Jake took a deep breath. This was it. He turned to Erin. Ready? She placed a hand on his chest. Stay close. Our bond will guide us. Jake wasn't sure what that meant, but he trusted her. Then, they moved. Jake darted out first, rifle raised. The executioner spun toward him instantly, its weapons locking on. Boom! A red energy blast exploded where he had been standing, barely missing him as he dove behind an ice boulder. Erin followed, her hands glowing with energy. The executioner charged forward, its massive legs shaking the ground. Jake gritted his teeth. Come on, you oversized tin can. He waited for the perfect moment. Then, he fired. Direct hit to the executioner's eye. The machine staggered, its vision flickering for a second. That was all Erin needed. She leaped into the air, energy surging through her body. A pulse of blue light exploded from her hands, slamming into the executioner's chest. The machine let out a glitched screech, stumbling backward. Jake grinned. Yeah, not so tough now, are you? But then, the executioner adapted. Its armor shifted, plates locking into place, reinforcing itself. Then, it fired a shockwave. Boom! The force sent Jake flying, slamming him into the ice. His vision blurred. Pain exploded through his body. Erin cried out as she was thrown back, hitting the ground hard. The executioner marched forward, its red eyes locking onto Erin. Jake struggled to get up. No, 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 no. The machine raised its cannon, aiming directly at Erin. She was too weak to move. Jake's mind screamed. If she died, he died. But that wasn't why he ran. It wasn't about the bond. He wasn't going to let her die. Hey, scifitales, he roared, raising his rifle. The executioner turned to him. Jake grinned. Catch. Boom. He fired a high-energy explosive round directly at the executioner's leg. The explosion ripped through the machine's joint, sending it crashing to one knee. Erin took the chance. She forced herself up, eyes glowing brighter than ever. Then, she unleashed everything she had. A massive wave of blue energy surged forward, slamming into the executioner's core. Its red eyes flickered. Its armor cracked. Then, it happened. The executioner's power core overloaded. Sparks erupted from its body. It let out a final, broken screech, before exploding. Boom. Jake was thrown back again as the machine detonated, its shattered body collapsing into the ice. Silence. Only the sound of the wind remained. Jake groaned, sitting up. His ears rang. His entire body ached. But they had won. He turned, searching. Erin. She was lying on the ground, unmoving. Jake's heart clenched. He crawled toward her, shaking her shoulder. Hey, come on. Wake up. For a terrifying moment, she didn't move. Then, she gasped. Her eyes fluttered open, glowing softly. Jake exhaled in relief. You scared the hell out of me. She looked up at him, smiling weakly. We won. Jake chuckled. Yeah, we did. He helped her sit up. For the first time since this all started, they weren't running. They had fought back. And they had survived. But Jake knew this wasn't over. If one executioner had found them, more would come. He turned to Erin. All right, what's next? She looked at him, determination in her glowing eyes. We leave this planet, she said, and we fight for something bigger. Jake grinned. He had started this mission alone. Now, he wasn't alone anymore. The final stand. The frozen battlefield was silent. The remains of the executioner lay in the snow, its shattered core still flickering with dying red light. The canyon was littered with scorched ice, debris, and the fading energy trails from the battle. Jake took a deep breath, letting the cold air burn in his lungs. They had won. They had actually won. But deep inside, he knew this wasn't over. More would come. Erin sat nearby, still weak but slowly regaining her strength. Her silver-blue skin had a faint glow again, and her breathing was steadier, but she was far from fully recovered. Jake crouched beside her. We need to move. She nodded. Yes, but not just anywhere. Jake frowned. You have a plan. Erin met his gaze. We need a ship. Jake exhaled. Right, because staying here is suicide. Erin hesitated, then added, and because I know where to find the last hope for my people. Jake's expression hardened. I'm listening. Erin's glowing eyes flickered with something deeper, determination. There's a hidden facility, she said, deep beneath the ice. It belonged to my people before the war. Inside is something powerful. A weapon. Jake raised an eyebrow. A weapon? She nodded. Not just any weapon. Something strong enough to destroy the machines hunting me. Maybe even stop them for good. Jake whistled low. Now that's interesting. Erin stood, though her movements were slow. We have to get there before more come. Jake looked around the frozen wasteland. And how far is this place? Aaron turned to the horizon. The ice stretched endlessly in every direction. 50 miles south. Jake let out a tired laugh. Of course. Couldn't be closer, huh? Aaron gave a small smile. We'll make it. Jake sighed, shouldering his rifle. Then let's move before. Boom. The ground shook. Jake's instincts screamed. He turned toward the wreckage of the executioner, expecting something to rise from the debris. But the sound hadn't come from there. It had come from the sky. Jake's stomach dropped. No. Aaron's eyes widened. They're here. Above them. The sky split open as a massive warship descended through the clouds. It was sleek, black, and shaped like an armored predator. A ship of pure destruction. And on its hull, glowing red symbols pulsed. The mark of the machines. Jake's throat tightened. You've got to be kidding me. Aaron's face was pale. That's not just a hunter ship. That's a command vessel. Jake clenched his fists. And let me guess, it's here for you. Aaron's expression was grim. And for you. Jake exhaled. Well, that's just fantastic. The ship hovered above the canyon, its massive size blocking out the stars. Then, the sky rained fire. Running out of options, Jake and Aaron dove for cover as plasma blasts erupted all around them, turning the ice into molten pools. They weren't just firing to kill. They were hurting them. Jake gritted his teeth. They wanted them alive. Aaron pressed a hand against the ice, focusing. There's a tunnel beneath us, if we break through. Jake didn't wait. He pulled a detonator charge from his pack, set the timer, and threw it at the ground. Boom. The ice shattered, revealing a dark cavern below. Jump, Jake yelled. Aaron didn't hesitate. She leaped into the darkness, disappearing below. Jake followed, just as a massive machine landed where they had been standing. The last thing he saw before hitting the darkness was a pair of glowing red eyes staring down at him. Then, the ice closed above them. The secret facility. The tunnel was dark, cold, unnatural. Jake lit a flare, the red light flickering against the smooth walls. This wasn't just ice, it was metal. Aaron touched the wall, her fingers glowing faintly. We're close, she whispered. Jake followed her as they moved deeper into the underground chamber. The walls were etched with symbols, similar to the ones on Aaron's skin. Finally, they reached a massive door. Aaron placed her hand against it. The symbols lit up. The door rumbled, then slid open, revealing a massive underground hangar. Jake's breath caught. Inside the chamber was a ship. Not just any ship. A warship. It was sleek, powerful, clearly old, but still operational. A final relic of Aaron's people. Aaron's voice was quiet. This is our way out. Jake's lips curled into a smirk. Now this is what I'm talking about. But then, a deep voice echoed through the chamber. You will not leave this place alive. Jake's blood ran cold. From the shadows, a massive figure stepped forward. It wasn't a machine. It was something worse. A hybrid, half machine, half organic. A towering creature with red glowing eyes, metal plating fused with twisted flesh. Aaron inhaled sharply. No, it can't be. Jake raised his rifle. Friend of yours. Aaron's voice was barely a whisper. That was once my brother. The hybrid lunged. The final fight. Boom. Jake barely dodged as the creature slammed its fist into the ground, sending shockwaves through the metal floor. Aaron stepped forward, her body glowing with energy. You are not him. You are a machine. The hybrid snarled. We are perfection. You are obsolete. Jake fired his rifle, but the bullets barely scratched the creature's armor. It rushed forward, too fast, too strong. Aaron threw up a shield of energy, but the force of the attack sent both of them flying backward. Jake hit the ground hard, coughing. All right, that sucked. Aaron pulled herself up. We can't fight him directly. Jake's eyes darted toward the ship. But we can run. Aaron hesitated, then nodded. I'll start the launch sequence. Jake grinned. I'll keep our friend busy. He turned back to the hybrid, raising his rifle. Hey, ugly, wanna dance? The hybrid let out a guttural roar and charged. Jake dodged, firing everything he had. But it wasn't enough. Then, Aaron's voice echoed through the chamber. The ship is ready. Get inside. Jake turned to run, but the hybrid grabbed him. The grip was like iron. Jake struggled, but the machine was too strong. It was going to crush him. Then, Aaron screamed. A blast of pure energy exploded from her hands, slamming into the hybrid. The creature shrieked, its body flickering with unstable power. Jake broke free, sprinting toward the ship. Aaron followed, diving inside as the doors sealed shut. Jake jumped into the pilot's seat. Time to go. Aaron placed her hands on the controls. The ship roared to life. Outside, the hybrid howled in rage as the hangar collapsed around it. Then, the ship launched into the sky. A new path. Escape into the unknown. The warship roared through the frozen atmosphere, breaking free of the ice-covered planet's gravitational pull. Inside the cockpit, Jake gripped the controls, his heart still racing. The stars stretched endlessly before them, a vast sea of darkness and light. They had made it. He exhaled, glancing at Aaron. She was slumped in the co-pilot's seat, exhausted but alive. Her glowing eyes flickered as she stared at the viewport. She had spent so many years running, hiding, fighting just to survive. Now, for the first time in a long time, she was free. Jake let out a shaky laugh. Well, that was fun. Aaron shot him a tired look. You call that fun? He smirked. Okay, maybe fun is the wrong word. But hey, we're still breathing, so I'll take it. Aaron let out a small chuckle. It was the first time he had seen her truly relax. But then, the ship's warning system blared. Alert. Incoming hostiles icnals. Jake's smirk faded. Oh, come on. We just got out of there. Aaron's fingers flew over the controls. A holographic star map appeared between them, showing multiple red blips closing in fast. The machine fleet. They won't stop, she murmured. They'll keep hunting me. Hunting us. Jake's jaw tightened. He had known this wasn't over. The executioner was just a scout. The real war was still out there, waiting for them. Aaron turned to him. You don't have to stay with me, Jake. This isn't your fight. Jake snorted. Oh, you think I'm just gonna drop you off at the nearest space station and go on my merry way? Aaron hesitated. Most people would. Jake leaned back in the pilot's seat, running a hand through his hair. Listen, he said, I didn't sign up for this. But guess what? Neither did you. He glanced at her. But here we are. And if these machines think they can just wipe you out and get away with it, then they've got another thing coming. Aaron stared at him, her glowing eyes searching his face. You mean that? Jake shrugged. Look, I don't know much about destiny, fate, or any of that nonsense. But I know one thing. Humanity doesn't run from a fight. Aaron let out a small breath. Something changed in her expression. Then we fight. Jake grinned. Damn right we do. He turned his attention back to the holographic star map. They needed a plan. Aaron zoomed in on a distant star system, hidden deep in the void. There, she said, pointing. A forgotten outpost. A place where my people once built weapons, before the war. Jake raised an eyebrow. And what exactly are we talking about here? Blasters? Missiles? Aaron's voice was quiet. No, something bigger. Jake's grin widened. Now you're speaking my language. He punched in the coordinates. The ship's engines roared to life. They jumped into hyperspace. The war begins. As the ship streaked across the galaxy, Aaron leaned back, closing her eyes for a moment. For the first time in years, she wasn't running toward another hiding place. She was running toward a fight. And she wasn't alone anymore. Jake glanced over at her. "So, are we gonna need a crew?" Erin smirked. "You know a few good fighters." Jake chuckled. "Oh, I know a few people. You ever heard of a guy who took down a pirate king with nothing but a wrench and bad attitude?" Erin raised an eyebrow. "That sounds ridiculous." Jake grinned. "Yeah, but I swear it's true." Erin shook her head, but there was something lighter in her expression now. For the first time in a long time, she had hope. Jake stretched his arms. "So, what do we call this little rebellion?" Erin was quiet for a moment. Then, with a small smile, she said, "The Last Dawn." Jake nodded. "The Last Dawn. I like it." The ship hurtled through the stars, a tiny spark against the endless dark. But that spark, it was about to set the galaxy on fire.